Welcome to our pod. And by that, I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who usually do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. But today we are three best friends because we welcome back to the podcast Adrian Gibson, author of Spiffbo finalist Mushroom Blues, a contributing author to Fanfi Addicts of the Book of Spores, and author of A Murder Most Fungal out this week. Adrian, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You are always welcome, and you know that. But
my heart is melting, and we're like 30 seconds in.
My husband's going to be so excited to hear that you're back on the podcast because we listen to SFF Addicts all the time, and so whenever he knows that you're going to be on, he's like, "Oh wow, Adrian's going to be on! Like you're a celebrity in our household."
You've told me. It's like my voice is just like ringing out in your kitchen, and
the goats are recognizing you from across the farm.
Maybe not the goats, but for sure my husband.
Well, Adrian, we're here to talk about A Murder Most Fungal. So can you tell our listeners what your book is about?
Yeah. So if anyone is familiar with Mushroom Blues, so then they got an idea of the world, essentially. Mm-hmm. So this is the second book in my Fungalverse shared universe. Mushroom Blues is book one in the Hoffman Report. That's the specific series. And this one is like a standalone set between book 1 and 2. So it's kind of like the Hoffman Report 1.5. And it kind of shifts the perspective from Henrietta Hoffman, who's the detective in Mushroom Blues, and in A Murder Most Fungal, we are in the head of Pocho Jiro, who is a fungal chef, who is kind of like one of the more renowned chefs in Hapon, which is the archipelago where this series takes place, which is a bunch of islands inhabited by fungal people, essentially like human mushroom hybrids. So Pocho is a well-renowned chef, and the sort of lead up to Mushroom Blues is a war that kind of devastates this country. Humans invade, there's a 10-year war, and then the humans are occupying this entire country and the city of Neokonoko, which is the capital of Hapon. So Pocho finds himself destitute after the war, and basically the leader of the human occupation seeks him out, having heard stories of this famous chef, and brings him on to lead the kitchen, his personal kitchen, in his headquarters, such that the human leader can better understand the fungal people that he is ruling over. And so Pocho is very conflicted, being a fungal person and the personal chef for the leader of the occupation that is essentially destroying his homeland. And as a result of this, there's a lot of drama and tension that ensues in his kitchen, which is also filled with fungal chefs that had once worked for him. And basically, one of his chefs gets blackmailed by fungal gangsters, and that blackmail carries over to Pocho, and he finds himself in a very difficult situation, which is essentially the dilemma of either we kill your sister or you kill Duncan MacArthur, the leader of the human occupation. And so Pocho must decide if he will watch his sister die or kill MacArthur with his own food.
Dig it. I dig it.
It's very dark. Very good.
It is very dark.
I will just say, listeners, Adrian provided us a snippet of the book that we were able to read part of it. And I was reading it and I got to the end and I was like, I kept trying to like scan further with my Kindle. I was like, wait, that's it? Oh,
oh no, I'm sorry.
Oh no.
Yeah, because I hadn't finished formatting the ebook at that point.
How dare you?
And so I sent you the sample, but it had all the chapters in it. It's just like, yeah, yours is only up to this one. I'm sorry.
Devastating news.
We understand.
Yeah.
The reader in me is devastated.
Right.
But Adrian, your first Fungalverse book, Mushroom Blues, was like a huge success, and people were talking about it all over the internet, and it did super well. And Spiffbo, it came in second of sorts because there was a tiebreak situation and everything. I was kind of wondering, what was it like to return to writing in the fungal verse after the whirlwind experience that was your debut Mushroom Blues?
Right. Yeah, Mushroom Blues, whirlwind is a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I associate a whirlwind with like excitement and a lot going on and really awesome things happening, but it also kind of like broke me in a way where it was like I just put so much of myself into Mushroom Blues, and on like a marketing level it really benefited me, but on a creative level it just like completely ruined me. And it took me a while to get back into like writing at all, and be like a writing routine and rhythm that felt consistent and satisfying and healthy. So Mushroom Blues is like, I'm really happy that I have that book as a foundation, and I learned a ton of lessons from it that I will never repeat, or try to never repeat, because I have the foundation now to work upon. Now I can build on everything that Mushroom Blues laid out, and that takes a lot of pressure off me. But it took me like a good year and a half to like turn off the writing machine, or sorry, the marketing machine, and then kind of transition that into consistently writing again and being happy with the stuff that I was producing. And I was writing The Stemcutter's Daughter, which is the novelette that I contributed to the Book of Spores anthology, and then also writing A Murder Most Fungal. And those things, both of those really helped me ease back into this world in a way that was like, oh, okay, like I love doing this. And um it's not a matter of like I'll never be able to write a good book again, or anything along those lines. It was just like, no, my headspace was totally over here, and I
Mm-hmm.
needed it to get to this space in order to feel confident and be okay with making mistakes again, and just letting the story kind of speak for itself and evolve in a natural way, as opposed to trying to be like super rigid about it. So with The Stemcutter's Daughter, it helped because I was like, I'm going back like thousands of years into like I call it like a fungal folktale, which is basically like an in-world folktale that the fungal people tell to each other about kind of like, moral lessons, but also the foundation of their fictional religion. And that helped me to establish what it means to like write from the perspective of a fungal person, but in a much less high stakes circumstance, where it was like, okay, I'm like literally just writing like a young 12, 13-year-old girl in a village, and there's so far fewer problems and people and things like that. So it felt like a much more straightforward excursion, and it helped me to kind of flex out what it means to write from a fungal perspective and all that kind of stuff. And then A Murder Most Fungal was like, okay, we're back in the same timeline as Mushroom Blues. It's a couple months afterwards. What are the repercussions of Mushroom Blues? How would a fungal person be in this particular time period, with a whole city around them, with a much more complex cast of characters? And so Stemcutter's Daughter was like a really good stepping stone for me to be like, okay, I'm confident to write a fungal person, because when I was writing Mushroom Blues, I thought about writing Koji as a POV character, but I'm like, I'm not ready for this right now. Whereas now
You're
I'm
like, I'm a little burnt out at the moment. I need
yeah,
to
no, I
take
mean,
a
not
step
even just
back
burned
and
out,
try
but it's just
something.
like I just didn't have the confidence to write a fungal character
Mm-hmm.
at that time. But now I'm like, okay, I've written I've written Stemcutter's Daughter, I've written A Murder Most Fungal, both from fungal POVs. Now I can start incorporating fungal POVs into the Hoffman Report series and all the other stuff that I'm going to do in the fungal verse. So it's kind of like I needed that after Mushroom Blues broke me to kind of build me back up again.
I really love your experience with this because I feel like what happened to you, like, you're like, oh, I got all this success, and then you kind of get in your head. And I feel like a lot of people get the advice of like, well, go try to write something else in the same universe, or go try
Hmm.
to do this and just get comfortable with your universe again. And I think a lot of people don't want to do that. And it's nice to like see someone who did it and it worked.
Mhm.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it was basically just like with the novelette, like I'm just writing world building here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can be like way more playful with it because that felt to me more like a like deep secondary world fantasy where I'm like there are fungal spiders and there are like almost these like magical elements kind of thing, and I'm like that's kind of how a folk tale would be. That's kind of how
Hmm.
folklore and mythology works in our own world. It's it's analogous to the world that we know and understand, but then there are elements of the supernatural and elements of the unknown to it that kind of elevate it to this mythological status. And that for me was super freeing because it's like, yeah, this is set in the same world. Like if someone looked at a fungal person in the novelette and then they look at a fungal person in Mushroom Blues, it's like you can see the through line there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so for me it was like, yeah, I'm still in the same playground, but now I'm like on the slide as opposed to the swings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Well, and what was it like kind of expanding the world and creating Pacho as your main character and kind of getting into that mindset? Because you said you had thought about doing it before and this
Hmm.
is your first foray into it. So,
Yeah, I think the fact that he's a chef made everything so much easier. Like I have worked in restaurants, I've worked in kitchens, and I'm obsessed with food. And, I love cooking to this day. It's just such an integral part of my everyday life and experience. And, thinking back to my days of working at restaurants when I was at university in Vancouver and all of the kind of expansive opportunities that gave me in terms of broadening my perspectives of the world and cuisine and culture and that kind of stuff. At the same time, like, man, kitchens are just like a hot mess. There's like there's so many different personalities clashing and cooperating, and it's this mix of like infighting and incest and friendship and relationships. It's just like it's it's an absolute disaster, but it somehow functions. I mean, not all restaurants function, a lot of them don't, but it's just such an invigorating environment to be in. And so for me it was really cool to be able to kind of tap into that time in my life, and then also expand upon the books and the shows and things that I really really love. It's like I spent like so much of the 2000s and 2010s like watching Anthony Bourdain stuff and watching Gordon Ramsay shows like Hell's Kitchen and Kitchen Nightmares and those kinds of things. It's like I grew up on Food Network type content, and beyond that like reading recipe books and just like absolutely loving the process of here are the ingredients, here are the steps, and this is like the end product that you can do. And it's so cool to see that there's almost like a science to it, right?
yeah.
And at the same time, reading Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain just kind of like opened my mind to this is what a kitchen experience can be like on the page. It's like it's really challenging to take a multi-sensory experience like working in a kitchen where there's such a just a breadth of smells and sights and sounds and tastes and feelings going on, not to mention like the human element and like the amplified emotions that are kind of commingling. And he just captured that so well in Kitchen Confidential, and I was like, this is so much of what my restaurant experience was like. It's like, oh, that dude like was always high on cocaine, this guy was an alcoholic, this person used to be like ex-military, all of these different elements coming together to just somehow make plates appear on people's tables was so cool. And so I've just like loved putting myself in Pocho's head because I get to recapture all of that and infuse it into not only a fungal verse novel, like a a novel that's set in this world that I've created, but also blending it with, like crime thrillers and, kind of like interpersonal drama and all these kinds of things that make it not just a story, but like, okay, here's like a genre blending SFF story that, yes, it is about a kitchen, but there's also gangsters and murder and all kinds of messed up shit. You know what I mean?
Things that definitely happen in almost every kitchen.
Oh
So.
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, to be fair, a lot of kitchens have involved murder. So there are utensils for murder everywhere. So
Well, I'm not gonna lie, when I was reading this, a lot of the kitchen scenes were like very reminiscent of The Bear.
yes.
And
Yep.
there's like a
Hmm.
moment where they go into the deep freeze or like the walk-in fridge, and I
Hmm.
was like, this is The Bear. Like
I mean, the bear was a huge inspiration for me. It's kind of like I pulled from a lot of different things. So it's like Anthony Bourdain and like all the food television documentaries that I've watched. Jiro Dreams of Sushi is a huge one for me because it's basically like here's just a dude who's like deeply obsessed with one thing to the detriment of everything around him. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then there's shows like The Bear, which just showed me how effective drama can be in a kitchen environment because drama is baked into a kitchen regardless. It's just you're putting people from different backgrounds with different beliefs and opinions and everything into this really high stress environment, and shit's gonna explode, and it's gonna
Well, it's a
be
deeply beautiful
entertaining.
show because it
Yeah.
like shows the power of community where you
Hmm.
bring together these people from all sorts of different backgrounds and how
Yep.
they're all connected in this working experience through food and
Hmm.
their work. And I feel like you've done this in a really unique way in your book where like this whole team is brought together by Pocho, who is trying to somewhat protect them, but has kind of made them indentured servants,
Hmm.
basically.
Yep.
And you still see like this really like beautiful connection that they all have with one another and the way that they're communicating and everything. And I was just kind of wondering, was it difficult to like build these relationships and especially like the relationship between Pocho and Mori,
Hmm.
if I'm saying that right?
Yep.
Uh, I think they have a really cool relationship
Yeah.
and seeing it play out on the page is really fun.
Yeah, I think you nailed it because there's this spectrum within the restaurant industry where it's like conflict on one end and community on the other, and
Mm.
it's always vacillating between those.
Hmm.
And I think for any effective kitchen to work, especially if you're in an environment where it's like, okay, this is a Michelin star restaurant or something that's like much higher level, there is like a certain um hierarchy and structure that needs to be established and maintained in order for that to work. That doesn't mean that drama is not going to occur, but it's like that camaraderie and that structure has to exist in that kind of environment, which is why I equate it to like the military or like a pirate ship because it's like there's a
Yeah.
very clear division of labor, there's a very clear hierarchy and status going on within this space. But because of the intimacy of that environment, it's inevitable that these people will develop that sense of community, those friendships and relationships and that kind of thing. And so it's like in the case of Pocho and his second, like basically his like sous chef in like real world
Hmm.
speak, um, they have a really intimate relationship that is highly professional, where it's like they are deeply respectful of one another and the skills that they have. Mori very much looks at Pocho like a mentor and someone who has elevated her skills and given her the opportunity essentially to showcase what she's capable of. And as a result, she's just gone, far and beyond what Pocho expected
Hmm.
of her, to the point where it's like he, as like such a renowned chef, really respects what she's capable of. But then at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, all the other people that are in this kitchen, you can get a sense that it's like they're vying for approval and things along those lines. And that's when the sort of like military uh, environment kind of ambiance creeps back in, where it's just like, oh, your rice is really good today, kind of thing. And then it's just like that person is
Hmm.
very happy to receive that compliment. And when conflict arises, everyone else is just like, like they just tense up and they're like, oh no, like,
Well, you can feel the tension too in the
Yeah.
kitchen when you're reading, because there's a lot of yes chefs and, oh no, this person should have been doing this, and why is this person not communicating with us? This, you can feel the tension.
Yeah, and it's even more interesting because the fungal people are able to communicate with each other, basically like brain to brain communication. I drew a lot of inspiration from cyberpunk and like neurological networks and things like that for this, but it's like all of these fungal people are interconnected through, it's not necessarily a hive mind, but it's a unified biological system that they are all able to connect into and be a part of and communicate with each other. And that communication can take the form of like, I'm going to convey my emotions or desires to you. It could be like, I'm going to send you thoughts and kind of more specific type things. It can also be like social media where you mute and block people and be like, I don't want to show you anything, I hate you right now kind of thing. And so when that kind of thing occurs where it's like, okay, the first chapter of the book, the first scene, it's not really a spoiler because it's like I'd throw you right into the kitchen. One of the chefs is kind of creating this like this sense of discord within the kitchen. Nobody knows specifically why, because it's kind of like the inciting incident of the book, but everyone can kind of like sense his anger, sense that he's deeply frustrated. And it's almost like if you could see emotion, it would be like his body's just like roiling with like, red bubbling frustration kind of thing. But it's more like an intuitive thing for them being interconnected with each other. And so once it finally comes to the point of like that person explodes and the conflict really comes out into the open, then you get a much deeper sense of how these fungal people communicate with each other in ways that are both effective and very ineffective. And you start to see a lot of the nuance there. And so for me, it was like when I was saying I wasn't ready to write a fungal person, in at least from like a POV perspective in Mushroom Blues, is because I didn't understand that. I didn't understand the true nuances of how these people communicate and how that would be presented on the page in a way that is understandable to readers, but also gives you this deep sense of this is another being. This is someone that communicates in a way that is completely beyond what me as a human is biologically capable of. And so that was like so much fun for me to explore and then expand upon throughout this book.
Well,
and it goes deeper though, because they're like also sharing like memories and stories like via this network or through like even like pages or mold or things like that. And honestly, like the culture is very much tied into this communication too. And I was talking with Hannah before we started recording that it was very reminiscent to me of like deaf culture and the way that
both
their
my
language.
parents are deaf, so that really influences how I view communication.
I wondered if that kind of spilled through in the writing and if that was like one of your inspirations for the communication, because you can very much feel how the way that they're all tied to each other and they communicate is like deeply ingrained in their culture.
Yeah, and it's kind of like there's a multitude of communication, forms of communication. And so it's like with me and my parents, it's like, okay, there's American Sign Language. And a lot of people don't even know that it's like there are multiple forms of sign language across the world, much like there are different dialects and language roots and that kind of stuff. It's like American Sign Language is Canada and the United States. And someone who signs ASL probably would understand a lot of French Sign Language because American Sign Language primarily came from a mix of French and Indigenous Sign Language. That's why it confuses people that it's like, oh, I go to Australia and I go to the UK and I can't completely.
It's different
match.
language.
Yeah, it's a different language, right? It has different roots and everything like that.
Similar to, I think Mexico, they use a different sign form in Mexico for like Spanish speakers that are deaf.
Yep, and then even then there are variations throughout Latin America, like through Central and South America, right? Or in Spain. So it's really, there's a lot of nuance there, and ASL and signing is just one aspect of it. But on top of that, there's lip reading and the fact that most deaf people have a voice, and it's kind of a weird thing for people to comprehend because they're just like, a deaf person can't speak, and it's like, that doesn't mean they can't speak, right?
A lot of people choose not to.
Yeah, I mean there is
thing.
that, but it's like, there are a lot of deaf people who can vocalize something. And for me, growing up with my parents and growing up around their friends, if someone just speaks to me, I can understand them. And then if they look at my mouth and they read my lips, then they can understand me. And so that's just another level to the communication. And then on top of that is like the body language and emotional language that we as humans have to be able to convey things to each other through facial expressions and through body expressions and all these kinds of things. And that really helped me understand the multitudinous of the fungal people and how they communicate across different forms. And so there's like a scene where Pocho goes to a market and he has to essentially like, lie to his military escort and say like, I need to try a new vendor kind of thing. Because it's like, it's part of the plot that he needs to speak to these people. And the vendor, is him and Pocho are speaking to each other out loud verbally in their language, not the human language, but the fungal language. They're speaking out loud to each other so that no one else around in the market can overhear what they're talking about, like the truth of what they're talking about. But then they sense to each other across the fungal net a completely different conversation, and both are happening simultaneously. One of them is, I want to buy seafood from you, and the other one is, I'm going to blackmail you. And both of those are happening at the same time across different language spectrums.
But I also appreciate it though, because it's because you do have some people that are Copernican that are with them that are like able to speak Hopanese, and they decide to like communicate via the fungal network too. And I think it's kind of a unique way to show like, oh, we're still maintaining our culture and we're still talking with each other and keeping them out because this is ours. And they don't belong to this.
That's something that has happened so often throughout history where it's like, I mean, just with deaf people, getting put into schools and, my parents have told me like horrible stories of like back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, they would call them schools for the deaf, dumb, and blind. Like they would just lump people with disabilities together and disregard the complexity that is involved with all of those disabilities.
Yes.
Let alone the fact that they call it like deaf, dumb, and blind. It's like, come on, just like the cultural, just I don't know, just like the arrogance is unbelievable. But on top of that, it's
we've failed disabled people in our world for many years.
Up until like, I would say like the last like 30 years.
And in the US, we're still failing them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very true.
But then on top of that, it's like you have the Christianization of indigenous peoples in North America and resident schools and stuff like that, where people were basically just like forced to convert, and language was like a huge sort of like language and spirituality are like the two pillars that were essentially crushed, completely destroyed, and the colonizers attempted to rebuild their view and their language and their spirituality onto this destroyed framework kind of thing. And that happened in North America, that happened in South America and Central America, it happened in India and Asia and all these different parts of the world, Africa, where,
Canada too.
Where
Catholics were notorious for this. So
I mean, Canada has some really bad horror stories for sure. And all of that was kind of like, they're going to destroy you and then rebuild you through language. And you holding on to your original language is sort of like you resisting our our path, our goal, and in the case of like a lot of Christians and Catholics, it's like our goal through the eyes of God, essentially. And so for the fungal people, it's like them still being able to communicate to each other through the fungal net is like their form of resistance.
Well, this is definitely something I noticed a lot in this book is like the Hoffman Report, and we're in this world, Kanoko, where we're in the early stages of colonialism and in the early years where you still have this disruption and you still have this fighting back and we don't know what's going to happen. But we see like with the Capridians, dealing they're often both racist and fetishizing the culture, where it's like, if this is interesting, we like it, but if not, don't do it.
Yep.
And it's really interesting to see this book through the lens of Pacho, because it's the first time we're kind of seeing it from, the people being colonized perspective. So what
Yeah.
was it like kind of delving into these like deeper issues through the lens of Pacho?
I mean, that definitely just kind of like, I think, opened the door for everything that I want to do with this series going forward.
Mm.
And I like that you kind of frame it as like there's this duality
Yeah.
of disgust and fetishization kind of thing.
And fetishization until it doesn't work for them, and then
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
all of a sudden disgust. Like, it's just
Exactly.
so nuanced, because
It's
that
very
is how
familiar to us as white
Yes.
people, because our culture has been doing this for a long time.
Oh yeah. And I was
Yeah.
thinking particularly about like British India and the ways in which local officers and just military people would start to like adopt certain aspects and fetishize the dress and the food and the women and whatever else it might be, right? And so it's kind of like
yoga. Like,
yeah, it's like this.
Anytime you hear the word exotic, throw up.
Yeah.
Just throw up.
Yeah, and it's I think a lot of it kind of pulls from how I viewed cyberpunk in like the 80s and 90s, where it was like this techno orientalism and there was a lot of fetishization of Asian culture. And as I got older, I didn't really realize that, like watching Blade Runner, then like reading Neuromancer and Snow Crash and all this kind of stuff, and like looking back, I think Neuromancer did like a much more nuanced job of it. Like Blade Runner, it was such bullshit window dressing kind of, it doesn't add anything to the plot. And it's like, okay, this movie is set in Los Angeles in 2019, and I'm like, where are the Mexicans? Where are the I mean, Los Angeles is like such a complex city with so many people from so many different cultures, and it was back in the 80s when the movie was made. And so why the hell does Rick Deckard have to go to a noodle shop run by like the most just egregiously,
Pale people.
the most
I've
egregiously
seen.
stereotypical Asian person who looks like he just got plucked
See,
out
I've never
of, like,
seen Blade Runner. I was
my
assuming
God,
that they
yeah.
were all
Just-
whitewashed, that the
No,
cast
no,
was all
no.
white.
It was an actual Asian guy, but he was wearing
So it's the worst
he
stereotypes
was wearing
then.
a conical plastic hat, and he had like this the sort of spindly long facial hair and beard, and I'm like, this adds nothing to the story. It doesn't give me a clear sense of what Los Angeles is supposed to be like at this time, and it's also just kind of plastered with this stereotypical crap, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like me getting older, realizing like I love cyberpunk, but there are some aspects of it, especially in the earlier decades of that genre, that it's just like, this is like total BS. This is not adding anything to the story. It's not adding anything to the characters. You just needed him to be at a noodle shop, and you just needed him to eat street food. And this is the stupid result that you ended up with, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Well, and I think that's why like representation matters so much. And I think that we as white people often discount representation and like, oh, we get it. And it's like, no, you don't get it. You need to see these types of representation, because these types of things influence other people's work. So they see something like Blade Runner,
yes,
and then that's maybe the exposure that they get to these types of communities because they grow up in a primarily white community. And so then if they want to create something, they're then furthering these stereotypes. So it is
that's exactly it.
very
though. Like,
important to have the representation from different people of color, different religions, different cultures in general.
Yeah, but not just that. It's like representation, but also responsibility and understanding that, like, you as
Yes.
an author, because we recently chatted with Shannon Chakraborty on SFF Addicts, and we were talking about this specific thing, but just in the context of like history and global history. And she said something that really resonated with me. That was basically like, when you as an author decide to write about a place and time that is not your own, and if you're writing historical fantasy or historically inspired fantasy, it is not your time. So there's already that responsibility. But then if you choose to then layer on top of that, like, okay, I'm going to write about medieval, medieval Saudi Arabia, or 18th century China or something like that. That's another added layer of responsibility that you have to essentially be intentional about what you're writing about, do your research and understand the context and the nuances and the details of the place and the time that you're writing about, and then understand that a lot of people, especially in North America, are getting their history through popular media.
Yes.
Whether they're playing like Assassin's Creed video games or writing like any kind of video game that is representing a different time and place, or whether it's like historical fiction or historically inspired fantasy or anything along those lines, that is shaping the public perception of that particular time and place and those people, such that you are essentially adding to the popular canon of what people believe that time and place was actually like. Not necessarily. Here are a bunch of academics and historians who have studied and put in the time to understand, this is what, medieval Saudi Arabia was actually like. And then you have a bunch of people reading historical fantasy or historical fiction that, even if it deviates a little bit, it's still deviating away from the truth or the facts that professionals have spent their entire careers studying and understanding and trying to impart upon the public through podcasts or textbooks or university courses and things along those lines. So for me, kind of writing a story that is Japanese coded in terms of the fungal people, it was really important for me not to kind of distort the facts based on the real inspirations that I took from Japanese culture. So it's like, yes, my religion is not real. It's like I created it for the fungal people, but that does not take away from the fact that it was heavily inspired by Shintoism and Buddhism and Taoism, right?
Yeah.
So for me, in order to create a fictional religion that is respectful to the religions that it's drawing inspiration from and intentional in terms of the purposes of how I utilize that religion in the story itself, how do I do that in such a way where it's not being disrespectful to the actual source, right? And that could be the same for food. So it's like I'm taking a lot of inspiration from Japanese cuisine. Pocho is a makazushi chef, and it's just kind of like this is the in-world spin on sushi and different variations of sushi and raw fish and rice and that kind of thing. And so how do I pay respects to actual Japanese cuisine while I am sort of twisting and manipulating the cuisine for the purposes of this story and these characters and this world, without completely shitting on the reality of what Japanese cuisine is doing and is, representing on like a cultural and social and historical level. And so for me, it's like intentionality is everything. Intentionality lays the foundation, research builds upon that, and then you as an author accepting that you have to be responsible for the information that you are projecting to the public, allowing that to essentially permeate your story in a way that is not detracting from the narrative quality and adding to the world quality.
That's a really great answer. And I really appreciate that type of discussion, because we are living in a time where even there's been a lot of discussions about like, oh, how we don't let experts be experts anymore. We prefer to like take in fictional accounts or like the quote unquote truth from experts on quote unquote experts on Facebook. And so I do think that that's really interesting from the standpoint of like you talking about like, yeah, I think that this is important, but it's also a huge responsibility that I owe my readers to be very in depth and paying homage, but also like writing this in a way that is true to the experiences that actually existed for these people. But you mentioned something about religion, and I think there was like a really actually kind of beautiful moment that you depicted in the part of the book that I read where we see Pocho like becoming more connected to his religion, and
Mhm.
it's not only just a moment of like connecting to his religion as people, but there's like this form of creation that comes from it. Can you kind of talk to us about that a little more and creating that moment?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is I wanted to reflect on how completely devastating war can be to people, such that, okay, it's not just like physically altering a landscape through bombs and fire and all these kinds of things, or in the case of Japan in World War II, like the unbelievable levels of destruction of the atomic bombs, but how it affects people on like an individual level. And there are some people who in times of deep strife and struggle and pain will lean more heavily into religion, and some people who will lose faith and veer away from it. And so in the case of Pocho, it's like the war left him so destitute because nobody needs a lauded restaurant in wartime. You know what I mean? And I experienced this firsthand because like I was running a tattoo shop here in Quito, and then COVID happened, and nobody needs a tattoo during a pandemic when they have to pay their bills and they have to pay their rent and afford food and all these kinds of essentials, right? And so what does it do to somebody when their entire being, everything that they built up around themselves just collapses in a moment, right? How would that leave you? And so for him, it was kind of like he veered away from religion, and through the context of food and through this opportunity that this human leader gives him to essentially like reclaim some of what he's lost, to you know this person who had the most renowned restaurant in this entire nation, all of a sudden it's gone. And here's this human who you despise, and you despise what him and his government and his military have done, but he's also giving you that opportunity to get back up on the pedestal that you had spent your entire life building. But it kind of takes a moment of shattering your ego, and being blackmailed by gangsters and your sister's life being threatened will definitely do that to you.
Well, it's interesting too, if you mentioning like your own personal story. It's interesting how you've been able to delve into a different creative outlet and see something grow and create these fungal connections yourself. So that's actually really interesting how that was very much tied.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the kind of stuff that is like not super intentional. It just kind of, that's my experience, and
Yeah.
all of my stories are infused with at least some of my experiences. And in the case of Pocho, it's like I definitely understood. It's like I spent all these years building myself up as a tattoo artist, and then the pandemic just like made that all come crashing down, right? So it was a real moment of reflection for me to kind of ground myself and realize like, what do I actually want to do? And as a result of that, I started podcasting and writing, and here I am, like, 6 years later, and I'm super proud of everything that I've been able to accomplish as I moved away from tattooing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for Pocho, it's kind of like him in this situation trying to recapture what he's lost, and now people that he loves are threatened. It's kind of like, what is really important in life, and what are the connections that are meaningful and are going to sustain me. And he's sacrificed so much in order to get to where he is, including family, including faith, and those kinds of things. And so it's like these little moments where he's able to sort of like rebuild, not recapture what he'd built out, but rebuild the things that he'd tossed aside for
Well,
so long.
Pocho is an incredibly complex character because I
Yeah.
kind of read this and like for lack of a better for lack of a better comparison in my mind, I'm like, this is a darker Schindler's List where like Schindler is a hero because he is a German who decides to help the
Yeah.
Jewish people, but
Right.
Pocho is someone who is part of the community and he is often seen as kind of betraying his community because he is now he's a chef for a Caprinian leader.
Hmm.
He sees himself as saving the people around him because he's giving them the step up and he's running this kitchen.
Yep.
But there are other people who disagree with him, and he even
Yep.
disagrees somewhat himself. There's a moment where he says something along the lines of "survival isn't freedom," so you know that he knows he's
Yeah.
surviving,
Yeah.
but he is making concessions because of the world
Hmm.
he lives in, and he is not a hero in a lot of the senses. So, what
No,
was it?
he's very much a tragic character.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
was it like kind of building this tragic very anti like Schindler type character?
Okay, so it's like we're early on in the book tour. This will be released later on, but it's just like
Yeah.
this is the first time Schindler's List has come up. So
I don't know why I
um
kept being like because it just felt like the moment where people were like, oh, he saved so many, and I was like, I think Pocho thinks he is saving people, but I
yeah.
think other people would disagree, and I wonder
Hmm.
why one is a savior and one isn't.
Right.
And I'm like, I think it's because he's part of the community, so it's seen as like uh, you are going against your own community
Yeah.
by putting yourself with the oppressor, and I think that's
Yeah.
an interesting
Not only
distinction.
that though, it's kind of like he is not only putting himself in leagues with the oppressor, he's literally feeding the oppressor,
Yeah.
right? And so it's
Mhm.
like your food is sustaining the leader of the occupation, therefore is your food sustaining the occupation as a whole, right?
Yeah.
And in his mind, he's very much like um, you know, likening it back to military as well. It's like a squad leader will do anything to protect their squad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes to the detriment of their squad. And in his mind, he is putting food on his chef's tables. He is, providing for their families and giving them this opportunity to live beyond the food shortages and starvation that are occurring to so many of the other fungals in their city and their nation as a whole. And so in his mind, he's just like, I'm trying to take care of you. I'm trying to give you this opportunity. But in their mind, they're just like, you've turned us into servants. You've turned us
Hmm.
into glorified slaves working in a kitchen for the person that has completely devastated everything we ever had. Right. And
Yeah.
so for me, it's kind of like Pocho has these existential moments where he's like, he his ego kind of creeps in and convinces him that like this is right, but then the people around him, the people he cares about, come in and they just like, you know, metaphorically slap him in the fucking face to be like, no, you need to understand that this is not sustainable. This is not spiritually and morally and emotionally sustainable for us to keep doing this. And so it's kind of like this push and pull that he has throughout the course of the book. And I don't write happy books, so it's just it's kind of it's a running joke between me and Crystal Matar that we write very tragic stories and deal with a lot of
We have
existential
Travis
questions.
Baldry to balance you guys out,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's
For all
fine.
the Travises, there's me and Crystal, and we're just dealing with morally questionable people and cautionary tales and that kind of thing, which is,
Yeah.
I kind of got to this point where I was just like, of course, Shakespeare was influential quite a bit. It's like I called the book a murder most fungal.
Hmm.
Um, but Pocho, just like the way he kind of encapsulated that tragic character arc, for me was like immensely satisfying because it pulled on everything I love about Shakespeare. It pulled on everything I love about like Martin Scorsese movies, right? These characters who are just so wrapped up in their own ambition that they, regardless of how nuanced they are and regardless of how often they have moments where they start to understand their mistakes or struggle with certain decisions, ultimately end up making the wrong decisions and completely just like crumbling everything around them.
But it is like a very human and I think humans kind of
Yeah.
fight with that question a lot of like, well, if you are part of an oppressed group and you have an opportunity to help yourself, is it bad to do that, or is it good because you're doing what you need to survive? And I think
Hmm.
Pocho
Right.
has a lot of those questions in him, and I was like, I don't know what the right answer is, but I don't think he does either, and I don't think the book does either, but it's asking the question, so it's very
Yeah.
fascinating.
I mean, that's the thing I love is like I don't want a book that's like answering all the questions. I want to get the reader to start thinking about certain things. And for me, it's just kind of like extra fun because I'm writing a story about a chef.
Yeah.
And then if a book about a chef, you know, that is like essentially a crime thriller gets you thinking about these things, that to me is a sign of me succeeding at what I'm trying to do, because it's like I want this character study of this tragic chef and his downfall to get you thinking about your own life and questions about the human psyche and the human condition and that kind of stuff. And if I can get you so deeply invested in a character who is like part mushroom, then I am extremely satisfied with what I've done and what I've been able to accomplish on that front.
I think you and I both have a similar thing where we're like honed in on the stories of ordinary people and the power of the stories of ordinary people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you find them powerful is what I'm taking away from our conversations. Like
Yep.
a lot of people will write stories about like a hidden prince or a long lost queen or something like that. But there really is a power in the ordinary and
Mm-hmm.
ordinary people making it through difficult situations and the resilience of ordinary people. And I think right now we're dealing with so much of that. Like the world
Yeah.
sucks a lot. There's a lot of horrible people doing horrible, horrible things. And we're seeing so many people who are quote unquote ordinary do really extraordinary things.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just translating that over into your writing.
100%. And at the same time, people don't give a shit about the people in power. They are
Mhm.
they despise the people in power. Nobody's just like, I don't want to read a story about a prince or a princess because the actual princes and princesses on Earth are horrible, right? You know, like
Yeah.
Oh, we know. We
yeah,
live in the
yeah,
United
yeah. Like
States.
yeah, I mean, not even just the United States. It's like
But
oh,
like,
somehow like
yeah.
the queen and the queen of Norway is involved with Jeffrey Epstein or some crap like that. And you're just like, what, like there or
Yeah.
the prince, I think it's Prince Andrew in the
Yeah.
UK as well. And
Prince
it's kind of
Andrew.
like,
Mhm.
okay, here are these people who are in positions of power, but they're just awful people, right? And so I
One
don't.
comeuppance is that that photo of him in the back of the car, that haunting photo,
Yeah.
may end up being photo of the year.
True,
So I hope
true.
everyone has that cemented into their brains,
Yeah,
and that will
please.
haunt him for the rest of
And if you haven't, go
his
look it
life.
up. Yeah. um but the thing is like I don't want my stories to glorify those kinds of people because
Mhm.
I don't feel like A, I don't feel like they need glorifying, and B, I don't feel that stories in secondary worlds and sci-fi or fantasy or whatever kind of trying to capture that aren't capturing the lived truth that so much of us are experiencing in the real world. And
Yeah.
so it's like if characters are ordinary people, if someone's a chef, it's like so many people have worked in kitchens or worked in restaurants or are chefs or have been chefs, or even if it's just working like a dishwasher, any of it. It's like people who've eaten in restaurants or
Mhm.
watched Anthony Bourdain or like Gordon Ramsay or watched Chef's Table and all these different shows, like understands something about it. And we all eat. We all fundamentally survive because we eat.
Hmm.
That is one of our main functions as human beings, and is one of the most ordinary, almost invisible aspects of our lives is just food and the
As someone
sustenance
who
that it brings
who
us.
doesn't like
Food.
to cook very much, it looms over me, honestly, where I'm like constantly like asking my
Right.
husband, "What do
Well,
you
I
want to eat
think
for dinner?"
What do you want
I
to
don't
eat?
know.
Yeah.
What do you want to
Yeah.
eat?
And then
they
hear
say that
me
like
and my wife just like, oh God, what do we have to feed our kids today?
What
But
will they eat that's not
right,
crackers?
right. But it's just like there's so much ordinariness in it, and it's so much more relatable because of it, right?
yeah.
And even if you're not a detective, you're gonna be able to relate to the things that Henrietta is experiencing, or the things that Kojir is experiencing, or the things that a multitude of characters are experiencing this world. It might not necessarily have to be like I am analogous to this character in every facet, but it's like there's so much more ordinary, and therefore there are many more touchstones for me to be able to connect with them and relate to them and draw something, thematically relevant and thoughtful.
Well, two of your main focuses are food and connection, which are
Yeah.
like two of the things that people need most in this world. Of course, like sleep and water, but like
Yeah.
who's going to write a book
community is
about
extremely
that?
important to our lives.
Yeah. I mean, like on a social and emotional level, community brings so much to us. Same with food. Food is community in my mind. Those two things are one and the same.
Yeah.
Food is just kind of like this.
Well, it's like at any
foundational
family
element.
gathering I that I've ever been to, it always centers around the kitchen. We all bring a dish to pass,
Yep.
and for some reason, even though there's lots of comfy chairs to sit in another room, we end up hanging out in the kitchen, standing around.
Exactly, which is why I like watching those scenes in The Bear where they're cooking at their mom's house are so relatable, because it's like, here we're gonna make this big spread, and then it's like, all right, everyone's just like chilling in the kitchen having a beer or whatever it might be, and this communal aspect of food takes shape in so many different ways around the world, but fundamentally it's like the structures of our lives that are most important: family, friends, community on like different scales, storytelling. How much of human storytelling has taken place over food at a campfire? How much of human storytelling, and for the longest time oral storytelling, was taking place at a fire or a table or what have you. Literally the first food that every human ever consumes is breast milk, and that is the most like fundamentally organic form of connection that any human being will ever experience, is what you don't even realize you went through as a baby, right? And that is food given to you by your mother through her breast, and that is what gave you.
I mean, you could even say earlier, placental transfer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like the food that your mother ate while you were in the womb, and how
I'm a
that
biology
food,
major, people.
how that food impacted the development of your body and your brain.
Laura's like, you actually
right?
feed on your mother's blood, sweat, and tears. So just remember that.
I mean, my wife was very, very honest. She was just like, I was iron deficient because like our first son just like sucked it all out of me. But it's like, it's so visceral though, and it's like on a fundamental level, whether it's socially or culturally or biological or emotional, psychological, all these things come into play with food, and it is like the most pure language that I think humans are capable of, because regardless of whether or not you can speak to another person, you can serve food to them, and that is still a form of communication and something that you can bond over and essentially break down those barriers that language wasn't able to compensate for.
Well, Adrian, there's another passage in A Murder Most Fungal that really stood out to me, and it was this mention of obsession and how there's this addiction to pouring everything that you have into an idea, a dream, a project, a craft. And so our listeners and listeners of SFF Addicts know that you are incredibly talented and dedicated to your work, and you talk to a lot of authors and everything, and I kind of wondered, you as an author, if you had any advice for other writers who are in the midst of this obsession.
I think it is definitely obsession. Like I've talked to my co-host MJ Kuhn about this a lot, and it's like we are all somewhat fucked in the head because we are like unbelievably obsessed with this creative endeavor, with this craft, and there are times where it can just kind of like be all consuming, right? Where I'll be like doing anything, literally. It's just like playing with my kids or like cooking or in the shower or having a conversation with another person, and I'm not paying attention because I'm thinking about something to do.
You're like, hold that
story.
thought. Let me get a little notebook.
Yeah. And I mean, like sometimes it's kind of, not trying to be rude kind of thing, but it's just literally these worlds end up becoming so real and so lived in that they start to consume your imagination in a lot of ways. And so it's kind of like, whereas Pocho is obsessive and a perfectionist to the point of detrimenting everything in his life, I've learned on a creative level how to try and balance that obsession and kind of space it out in ways that make it feel less all-consuming. And so it's like just my daily routine and the things that I'm doing, you know, cooking breakfast for my family in the morning and things like that. I might have I might just have my phone with me and like I'll jot down notes and something like and stuff like that, but I'm not going to let it interfere with the rhythm of our morning and the things that need to get done and getting my son to school and all this kind of stuff, right? And then there are times where I can truly dedicate my brain space to that particular thing. And so I think my advice is to be very thoughtful, and again going back to intentionality, being very intentional about the time that you do have available and the responsibilities that you have, whether as like a parent or a friend or a partner or whatever it may be, or work obligations as well, finding the appropriate time to dedicate to your craft and figuring out ways that you can kind of vent a little bit. You know, and I equate venting to like, I just have a sticky note and I just scribble something down, or I type something into my phone really quickly, and being very, very honest with everybody else about that, you know? So it'd be like, I'll tell my wife like, hey, can you just pause for a second? I'm just going to write something down on my phone. I had an idea, right? And then you continue your conversation or whatever it was that you were doing. Because the people that love you and the people that know you will be like, oh, that's totally normal.
They'll understand.
And they'll understand, and they will not let that impede whatever it is that you two are doing together, you know? And so the same thing with my kids. It'll be like, hey guys, let's just like pause with like the Legos or whatever. Like daddy's going to write some stuff down. And then having that stuff in a place where you can easily access it, such that when you do have the dedicated time, you've got all those notes, you've got all those ideas, and then you can figure out ways to fully incorporate it into whatever you're working on, you know? And I think writing is one of those obsessions where it is very mobile and malleable. It's not like, hey, I'm a chef and therefore it's like, these are the hours that I'm at a restaurant doing lunch service or dinner service or whatever it may be. And your hours are very kind of set in stone. And
the thing is, I think that the lack of restriction though is in itself a little bit restricting, because it then causes you to think, oh, well, I've got all this time right now that I could be doing this. And it's like, oh, well, this is time that you're spending with your family. Well, all right.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like, you have to prioritize in a way that is healthy and sustainable. So figuring out when is an appropriate time to ideate and just jot down ideas, and then when can you apply that to something that is actually more tangible, that doesn't involve you shirking your relationships or your responsibilities as a parent, or you know, your work hours. I mean, you can do that at work too. Like the chat that we have with Shannon, she was saying like she worked as like a you know, receptionist at an OBGYN office, and she was like, yeah, like I just like have my sneaky Word doc open, and then when nothing's happening, I jot down like a couple hundred words or something like that. That is appropriate allocation, because it's, yes, you're being paid, and technically your boss would probably be pissed that you're doing that, but it's not interfering with anything else that you're supposed to be doing. And so I think finding that balance, it took me a long time to find that balance, but I think, you know, if you can find that balance, and whatever kind of system works for you, it'll result in, you know, your obsession, resulting in a much more kind of fluid creative output, but at the same time, not completely ruining your relationships and responsibilities.
I appreciate that answer, because I've been asking a lot of difficult questions like this of authors recently. Like we just had an interview with Fonda Lee not that long ago, and I
Yeah.
was like, Fonda, what are you doing with your life? Basically, like, what is the meaning of life? And then I just
Oh
asked
my
you,
God.
like, Adrian, tell me how to manage work-life balance. Like,
How do you
that
do
was
that,
a very
Adrian? Come
eloquent
on.
answer. So
The
I
hard-hitting
appreciate
questions on our pod. Yeah.
Laura
This
doesn't
is
let
how I
people
get
get away with
therapy.
it. So
I'm getting extra therapy sessions in.
There you go. Hey,
so
it
I
works. I'm here for it.
I
Go
am
ahead.
also here to talk about your book cover because it's gorgeous.
Thank you.
And you've actually been doing a lot of work in book design
Yes.
recently. Can you tell our listeners more about that and, what you created for a Murder Most Fungal, broken into courses? Like what have you done for this and with your book
Yeah, like
covers and all
on the
that?
design front.
Yes.
Yeah. So I do all the design for my books. So what I'll do is I'll basically like find the artist who I want to work with. In the case of Mushroom Blues, that was Felix Ortiz, and for A Murder Most Fungal, it's Katarina Belikova. Her Instagram is Ninja Joe Art.
Dig
She
it.
does amazing stuff. Most of her stuff is kind of like cyberpunk and robots and sci-fi. And then I was like, hey, can you just do like a mushroom chef for me? But she absolutely nailed it. And
Yeah.
I'm so happy with the end result. So I took that art and kind of applied it to the shape of the cover, did the typography, so like the title design, my author name, all that kind of stuff. Designed the paperback, designed the hardcover with the dust jacket and all that kind of stuff. And then on the interior, basically just kind of went all out with this one. This is probably like my most, other than the Book of Spores anthology, this is like my most complex interior, where I've essentially created a bunch of extra content through the lens of you're opening like a restaurant menu. So you'll open up like, the map that's in Mushroom Blues as well. I changed the locations to make it appropriate to this story, and then basically put that onto like this kind of restaurant menu template that I created with these kind of decorative borders and stuff like that. And then there's like a little note in there that's just like, we give away complimentary maps to all of our paying guests and stuff like that. So it's like, just little details like that. The review page is basically just like, if you enjoyed your meal, like please consider reviewing this book, and making it very tongue-in-cheek and referential to the restaurant experience. If you enjoyed
And the book's even divided into courses, though.
Yeah. So it's like the
And
my
samplers.
my Michelin star tragedy in 6 courses is literally, when you start the book, it is first course, and I created like a whole tasting menu of in-world dishes for this tasting course. So you start off with the first course, and then there's 5 parts to the book. So every part of the book, you go through main chapters, then you get a palate cleanser, which is kind of like a flashback to a part of Pocho's past. And then you start the next course. So it goes all the way through second, third, fourth, fifth, and then final course is the end of the book, and you're eating the dessert, and you may or may not be completely happy with the end result of this narrative.
Adrian, no.
But that part was really fun for me. And then I incorporated a lot of illustrations, like my own illustrations. So I've got illustrations of mushrooms, I've got illustrations of seafood and sushi and those kinds of things. I've even got a visual guide. So there's like a fungal fin tuna, which is
Beautiful.
kind of like this in-world fungal variation on like a yellowfin tuna or a bluefin tuna kind of thing. It has mushrooms growing off of it, and I have a diagram of the fungal fin tuna pointing to the different parts and what those cuts are, if it's more fatty or if it's red meat, high quality, low quality, all that kind of stuff. And then match that with different types of makazushi. So you have like makazushi, which are like these rice rolls. Then you have yazimi, and these things that are more equivalent to like sashimi or nigiri in the actual world. And then all throughout there's illustrations of
Knives, chopsticks,
rolls, different seafood and that kind of stuff.
Beautiful things.
So yeah, I just kind of went all out for it, because I love doing this stuff. Like this is,
well, and it's really cool. It adds a lot. Honestly.
I mean, for me, it's kind of like, I love doing it because I love doing it, but I know it adds a lot for readers to have a multi-sensory experience where it's like, okay, there's a Spotify playlist, and
Yeah.
there's illustrations in there. There's this menu aesthetic that really kind of invests you a little bit more in the story, as opposed to just like a blank page design with just text on there. Like, to me, that's really boring. And so I kind of approach it from the angle of like, I want you to be as excited by the story itself as you are by the physical product that you're holding in your hands. And so this is kind of what I've applied to a lot of the book design stuff that I've done through my freelance work. And then as of like 2 weeks ago, starting a new job with Grimdark Magazine as well, to start applying that same ethos to all of the novellas that I'm going to be working on with them in the future.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that, and like maybe if you have any other personal projects coming down the pipeline as well.
So yeah, the job with Grimdark Magazine, I'm their sort of like project manager for their novella line. So it's kind of like start to finish type job, where I'm going to be working with them on acquisitions and figuring out like, this is the pipeline of authors and projects that we want to do. And then receiving those manuscripts, working with the authors themselves and the editor to fine tune it and get it ready for publication, working with the artists on getting like the art, and then either doing the design myself or using one of our other in-house freelance designers to create the cover and do the interior and all that kind of stuff, and then take it forward through promotion and publication and marketing and all that kind of stuff. So it's very
variety of genres, or are you just kind of looking for SFFH?
I mean, it's Grimdark Magazine, so it's more within like the Grimdark kind of umbrella, but but that does encapsulate, like, there is Grimdark sci-fi, there is a little bit more like lighter Grimdark versus like really grimdark kind of stuff. But I'm super excited to work with them, and I love the team over there, and you know, I'm very fresh into it, but we'll see how it goes. I'm already working on the first cover for my first project with them. So that's to be announced. I mean, there's going to be stuff coming about that book soon. It's Fortune's Wake by C.L. Clarke, which has already been announced, but we just haven't showed the cover off or anything like that. So shout out to Sheree, who is absolutely amazing. And then other than that, there's a bunch of stuff that I'm working on that I can't necessarily talk about.
Fair enough.
No, I can tell you.
Keep us in mystery.
I can't tell. So after Murder Most Fungal, I will be focusing on a variety of projects. There's a couple of Fungalverse things that I'm working on that are going to be in like different mediums, so not novels or novellas. There's also another anthology that I'm working on, and yeah, I mean, there's always so many things, but those are like the most immediate, I guess.
So we need to be paying attention, listeners, and listeners,
keep an eye out in the future.
Adrian, where can listeners find you to be keeping an eye out for these projects?
Yep. So you can find me at Adrian M Gibson on all the social media platforms, though I'm most active on Instagram, or at least that's the one that I actually like using. I'll put that caveat out there. So if you want to interact with me, like, Instagram's definitely the best place. You can also check out my website, adrianmgibson.com, and I've got all my links there, links to all my books, links to my portfolio for my book design and all that kind of stuff. You can sign up for my newsletter, which I release every month. And then you can also find me on SFF Addicts, which is my podcast with MJ Kuhn and Greta Kelly. And you can find that in Laura's kitchen, as well as
come to my house.
all
we'll
the podcast
together.
platforms. Wherever you're listening to our pod, you'll be able to find it as well. And if you want to watch video, you can check it out on Spotify and YouTube. And then if you want to read Mushroom Blues, you can buy that wherever books are sold. You can get it in paperback, ebook, hardcover, and audiobook. And you can order it through like indie bookstores and stuff like that. So go support your indies.
Awesome.
And if you want to get A Murder Most Fungal, you can pre-order that. It's out on June 16th. You can get that in ebook. And then at launch, it'll also be releasing in hardcover and paperback. But if you want to pre-order hardcovers, you can get those signed through the Broken Binding.
So at the time that this recording comes out on June 17th, the book is out.
It will be out.
So the book is out now. So go buy it. Go buy it now.
And, a final question we ask all of the people who come on here. What are you reading, watching, and/or enjoying right now, Adrian?
I am reading The Blackfire Blade by James Logan, which is fantastic. James is a good friend of mine, and I loved The Silver Blood Promise. It's kind of like very much Locke Lamora vibes. So if anyone's like in the mood for more Scott Lynch type stuff, but Scott's not releasing things, then go check out James's books because they're really good. Or if you like Among Thieves by MJ Kuhn, I'll just plug and Queen of Days, both of them. It's very much in the vein of these kind of like heisty vibes, and I don't know, it's just like a ragtag group of thieves and ne'er-do-wells that I really like. So Blackfire Blade is really good. I also just started I didn't know this existed, but there's like 3 comic collections of Haruki Murakami short stories. So basically they've been like adapted into comic short stories, and then they're about like 5 or 6 in each collection. So there's 3 of them. They have these really striking, colorful covers. One of them has like a frog on it. Another one has like 3 monkeys. And so,
cool.
So I just randomly stumbled across them at a local bookstore here in Quito, and just like got them immediately because I was like, Haruki Murakami, and it's comic,
excuse you,
and it's in English. I'm on this, man. I'm still not used to like reading stuff in Spanish. It's just like I want to read it in like. I mean, Haruki Murakami is already translated, but
so that can even that's so many layers. And he is also incredibly into like layered thematic things. So I get wanting to be like, maybe English is the way to go.
Yeah. Although I did read 100 Years of Solitude in Spanish, but that was because it's the original language. So I was like,
of course.
I want to give this one a shot.
Yeah.
But it was still extremely dense and very, very difficult. And I had to have like my phone sort of like English Spanish dictionary with me at all times when I was reading that. So yeah, I am reading Blackfire Blade, loving that, and then reading these like Haruki Murakami short story comic collections, which have been really cool. And the art is like wildly weird and very fitting for the ordinary strangeness of Haruki Murakami's work.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on. Everyone, go buy Adrian's books, all of them. Go support him. Go support SFF Addicts wherever you get your podcast, where you're listening
Mushroom
to this right now.
Murder Most Fungal. Get them now. Come to my kitchen. You can cook for me. You're welcome to. I mentioned earlier I don't want to cook, but I will listen to SFF Addicts with you.
Well, and you guys know where to find us.
She'll chill in the kitchen. Drink some beer with you. You cook.
Yes, totally.
You listen to the podcast.
Absolutely.
Just bring her gluten-free beer every once.
We'll just do wine. It's fine.
There you go. Yeah, drink it.
And everyone, you know where to find us. OWWR Pod on all the social platforms. OWWRpod.com if you want to see what's going on with us right now. And we just got done with our deep dive back into Murderbot, and we're headed into the year of the Dresden, so pray for us.
Back into the Dresden Files.
And we will catch you next week. And Adrian, thank you again for coming on. We always appreciate it.
It's been wonderful, and just signing out with Laura. Just
Laura being reminded that Dresden is on the horizon. Ba-dum-bum. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.